Hey, what's up, YouTube? Hey, I found this interview with Robert Herjavec, and he's one of the billionaires on Shark Tank. Well, I saw this interview, and it talks about his friendship and mentorship with Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger passed away, maybe 2 years ago, year and a half ago or so. But Charlie Munger, one of the wealthiest people in the world, lived well below his means. If you saw him in public, most of you would have never even known who the man was, a billionaire, lived well below his means. And when I saw this interview, it made me sad. It made me think about my grandparents, made me think about my great grandparents because they lived well below their means. They were very much so cash heavy, the things that I talk about on the channel. They're the ones that instilled this mindset in me of making as much money as you possibly can and living on as little as possible, that you don't need a lot to get by. You just got to figure out how you want your life to look. But it just made me sad because people like Charlie Munger, people like my grandparents who are dead and gone, they're dying breeds, man. They're goodness, man. They're the last. And so when I sat back and I saw this interview, it just made me a little bit sad because it's something that I could relate to. And this is ultimately the mindset that I try to teach to people and try to teach to some of you. And some of you guys have listened and you've listened well and you get what I'm saying. And but I feel bad for a lot of these young kids because they think everybody's supposed to be in a Lambo and doing this and doing that, and that's just not the case. So, anyways, I'm gonna stop yapping. I'm gonna let you guys see this interview. Sit back, watch it. I just felt like somebody might find value in it because I did.
Hi, it's Robert Herjavec. Welcome to my series, Things I've Learned from a Billionaire in order to become a billionaire. My first one was around the incredible Mark Cuban, who I've had the privilege to know for many years. The next one is about Charles Munger, who needs no introduction, prolific investor. I hope you enjoy. How I met Charlie. When I lived in LA, I was obsessed with SoulCycle. There are some amazing instructors. I loved the intensity. I loved the community of it. No one really cared about what anyone else did because our common bond was the class. One day, one of my friends in the class says to me, his boss is a big fan of Shark Tank and he'd like to meet me. I kind of let it go, didn't think too much of it at the time. A few weeks go by and he says, my boss is actually Charles Munger and he is a big fan of Shark Tank and would love to meet you. My first reaction was, sure, you work with Charlie. So I let it go again. A few weeks go by again, and my friend asks again. This time, I figure it must be real and would love to meet Charlie, so I say yes. We arrange a meeting, I hop in my car, and I start driving. I get to the address, and I look at the house, and I think, it's a nice house, but it's from the 50s. It's not modern. It looks exactly like it did in the 50s. So I drive around the block thinking I must have the wrong address. I finally go in. It turns out it's the right house. It's the same house Charlie bought in the 50s, loved it, and stayed in it. Houses, showmanship, and flash were not his thing. I walk in, and that's the first time I meet the incredible Charles Munger. Why did Charlie want to meet me? Of course, I had to know why in the world would he want.
Houses, showmanship, and flash were not his thing. There are people out here, and I know a few of them right here in the area I'm in, that have money, real wealth, real business owners that have stacks of cash. And you would never know because they wear work boots. I can take you guys. I might try and set it up one day. I know a guy's got to be worth $50 million. Got to be worth $50 million. I've never seen him in a suit and tie. His business, 100%, my right hand, guys, his business is at least 50 million. He's responsible for putting in all the gas. Never seen the man in a suit and tie. He is not a flashy guy. He drives an old truck. He throws his dogs in the back. He just does his thing. Sam Walton, made in America, not a flashy guy. And that's what I feel bad for all you kids out here thinking that rich and wealth is Andrew Tate. That everybody acts like that because they don't. You got quiet money and you got loud money. You're going to have to make a choice as which one you want to be.
To meet little old me. So I asked him,
His answer, you seem like the sensible, nice one on the show. And I love the show. Wow. He called it great entertainment about one of his favorite topics, investment. One incredible compliment. He wanted to meet me for no other reason than he has an insatiable appetite for business and people and was extraordinarily curious. He found out through one of his partners that I did Soul Cycle with that guy, and he mentioned it to him, and that was it. I'm sitting in Charlie Munger's house. He wanted to talk about everything. He's one of the few people that asked more questions than I did. During COVID, we used to do Zoom calls. He and his team wanted him to stay sharp, and a bunch of people like me would call him on a regular basis just to chat. As I'm getting older and worrying about my own longevity, I realize how vital this is. An occupied and curious mind is a young mind. Charlie was in his 90s, extremely sharp. The key is surround yourself with people that inspire you, keep you sharp, and keep you curious about this incredible thing we call life. One thing he was really proud of, as humble as he was, and he rarely talked about success, was his book, Poor Charlie's Almanac, The Wit and Wisdom of Investing. In fact, he was so proud of it, he gave me a signed copy in our first meeting. The sad thing is I've moved the houses so many times, I have no idea where it is. I hope I find it one day in one of my moves. This is the story of the incredible Charlie Munger. He passed away earlier this year. I miss talking to him. He was a great man. 10 things I have learned from Billionaire to become a billionaire. The Charles Munger version. Number 1, be humble. The first thing you notice about Charlie is the lack of pomp and circumstance. His house was simple, nice, but simple. His staff, and there was only one person at this point, Charlie was in a wheelchair, made me lunch. I forget what we had the first time, but I think it was cheese and ham on white bread with butter or something like that. The decorations were simple. He wore a suit and tie. I suspect he wore that every day. I think it was just the way he was. It was a sign of respect to him. Not for himself or to show off, but to the people he met. He came from the day where serious people wore a suit. Humble and simple. Don't judge a book by a traditional cover. Wealth does not always express itself in the way you think. Never assume that the one with the flashiest toys is the richest one. In fact, in my experience, quiet wealth is usually the most powerful and the biggest wealth. If you need to tell people how rich you are, in general, you're probably not that rich. Charlie was a simple guy and none of the outward stuff mattered to him. Lesson: don't judge others by the toys you see. Great wealth tends to whisper, not shout. The goal is not necessarily to get a billion, but the goal is to learn how others have done it and apply it to yourself. This is simply my journey and what I have learned from some of these remarkable people. There are different types. The first thing I have noticed about these people is how different they all are. There's no look, there's no way they act, there's no outward physical characteristic. Some are short, some are tall, others are incredibly fit and pour every penny into longevity and living well. And some have horrible habits that make you wonder, how in the world are they still alive? It's all different. Some are incredibly showy. They have yachts, super fancy cars, own sports teams, dress incredibly well. And from far away, they're billionaires instantly. And some are so simple and humble that you would not know they're wealthy until you meet them or someone tells you about them. This story is about one such billionaire, Charlie Munger. Simple in all things except his mind and business, humble and gracious. The complete opposite of some of my other billionaire friends. He is the small town, quiet billionaire. Were it not for his partnership with Warren Buffett, no one would ever know his amazing wealth. Number 2, use money as a resource, not as an end goal. In all our discussions about wealth and money, I never remember him saying about how he wanted to make a lot of money in the sense of, I wanted to be rich. It took me a while to figure that out. He always talked about the making of money as part of a larger goal. One business would make money, they would use that money to buy another business, and so on.
Don't chase money, chase success. You guys remember me teaching you that? Like the shit I talk about is not made up. Don't chase money, chase success. If you chase money, all you'll get is money. Don't chase money, chase success.
I realized that I talked about money as an end goal, not as a process. I wanted to get rich. Charlie wanted to buy an insurance company to disrupt the insurance business in order to buy another business. Me, I just wanted to make money to be rich. I was thinking about money as an end goal, and it's not. I don't think of money that way anymore. It has nothing to do with being rich or wealthy or any of that. It's about how you think about money. The funny thing, as an immigrant, we never, ever talked about money. I used to ask my parents, how much money does that guy make? Or what do you think that house is worth? And they would tell me, don't talk about money. It's rude. Honestly, I think my parents would have rather talked about sex at the dinner table than money. It messed me up for many years and my relationship with money. Money is a tool, no different than a hammer or a saw. If you want to build the house of your dreams, you need to know how to use the tools. Lesson: money is not an end goal. It's a tool to be mastered to build the life that you want. If I gave you $1 million and told you to spend $1,000 a day, you would run out of money in 3 years. If I gave you $1 billion, it would take you 2,740 years to run out of money. Or think of it this way. You could have spent $1,000 a day since the day Christ was born and still have money. Billionaires. So how many of them are there? As of last count, there were 3,194 in the world. America has by far the most billionaires, around 813. China is second with about 400. America, despite all the challenges, real or perceived, continues to be the bastion of capitalism. And while you can deride the political system, I can tell you from personal experience, having lived in communism, democracy is still the way to go. Curiosity feeds the mind and the wallet. Charlie was a legend, and I have to admit, I was in awe when I first met him. I had a million questions. I wanted to ask him about life, about investing, many things. I have a habit of asking people a ton of questions, to the point I can make people feel uncomfortable. I have a natural curiosity about life and people, and I find people fascinating. And I just don't mean powerful, wealthy people. I mean all people. A good friend of mine who's a pastor said something to me a long time ago that I think is very much true. You will never find anything in life as fascinating as another human being. And I think it's very true. But before I had a chance to ask Charlie a million questions, or even a single question, he started asking me questions about me, where I came from, Shark Tank, my parents, how the show worked. He loved Shark Tank. He asked me a ton of questions. I learned a lot in that, not the least of which was the key to good answers was great questions. Lesson: curiosity did not kill the cat, but it made him richer and more informed. Number 4, life is long, prepare. When I met Charlie, he was in his 90s. Just think about that for a second. In his 90s, he passed away only 34 days before his 100th birthday.
How many of you remember me telling you you're going to wake up in 30 years? If you're 35 years old, you're going to wake up and be 70. If you're 50 years old, you're going to wake up and be 85. You might as well start preparing for the next 30 years of your life, right?
Life is long. At the time, I was in my 50s and feeling really old. I meet Charlie and I realize he's 40 years older than me. You know what put it in perspective for me? I thought backwards 40 years. I was 10. I don't remember a single thing at 10. Think of the life I've lived in 40 years, and he was that much older than me. When you look forward, it doesn't seem long, but when you take that time and look back, it's long. You're never going to be younger than you are right now. In some ways, life is very short and you need to get going. But in other ways, life is long. You have more time than you think. One of my favorite sayings is constant forward momentum. Think about each of those words. Constant, one at a time, not short bursts of energy, but success is constant. Doing the little things every single day. Forward. That does not mean you're always moving forward. Sometimes bad shit happens, you go backwards, but you're always trying to face forward and momentum. Life is energy. As they say, life is a vibe. I'm on a big training binge right now, working with an amazing trainer. I'm trying to get lean and build strength. Can't you guys see it? Do I look great? One of the things I have learned from him, it is much harder to do a full pull-up or push-up one at a time from a dead stop than doing many in a row. Why? Momentum. Once you get going, you build a certain amount of momentum and that propels you forward. But if you stop between each pull-up and hang your body dead still and then do another pull-up every time, it's super hard. You're starting over every single time. Your body carries no momentum from one to the other. It's the same in life. Momentum carries you forward. Now, here's the thing about momentum. It cannot discern good from bad. Bad habits can accelerate, and so can good ones. Lesson: you have more time than you think. Constant forward momentum. Buy a business run by idiots. In one of our meetings, I asked Charlie, off the cuff, what's the best kind of business to buy? I was expecting an answer around certain categories, certain amount of EBITDA, some financial parameters, margins, blah. But instead, without hesitating, he says to me, buy a business that can be run by an idiot. Charlie obviously knew how hard it was to run a business and how complex, but he and Warren Buffett look at businesses that could be run by an idiot. They didn't mean people were idiots, but they wanted a business that was easy and so well set up that almost anyone could run it. They believed they were smarter than the average person and could add some guidance and capital and make it better, but the foundation had to be a great business that someone had built to a point where it was operating smoothly. Obviously, this was hard, which is one of the reasons they bought so few companies. As Steve Jobs once said, it is incredibly complex to make things simple. Simple is hard. And operating a business that an idiot could run is really hard. The point is, a business based on talent is very difficult to buy because guess what? The talent walks out the door every single day. This is one of the reasons they never invested in tech for such a long time. Tech is based on talent and on technology that can change and does very, very quickly. Soda, insurance tends to be constant. The other thing they liked about more traditional businesses is the barrier to entry. They're massive. Diet Coke is a distribution business all over the world. The infrastructure is massive. To disrupt that would take a lot of money and many, many years. Keep in mind, to an investor, if your business is based on a small group of highly talented people, it's going to be hard to sell. You don't want to always be the smartest person in your business. Investors generally want to buy your business and not you. Lesson: build a business that can be run by an idiot. Investors like simple. Investors are not operators. Know which one you are. Charlie was a great investor. I'm an okay investor. I think I'm a better operator. It is good to know what you are. Charlie and Warren were very clear which lane they were in. They were investors. They put capital to use. They bought businesses to deploy that capital and get more capital back. They were famously long-term investors. But in all of that, they were very clear they were not there to operate. Again, a different model. May not work for everyone, but worked really, really well for them. They did not buy businesses to change them. They very rarely made management changes. And famously, many of their businesses, many years later, still run by the same people that were in place when they bought them. They did not want to invest in the business to fix it or come in and tell the team how to run it. They don't want to operate. They want to invest. Lesson: stay in your lane. It's better to pay a good price for a good business than a bargain price for a bad business. By the time I met Charlie, I had made 13 acquisitions in my own business. Some of them were very small, $1 million business, and some were large, $40 million business. I'd become pretty good at it, especially considering at that point, I owned 100% of my business. As my business got bigger, it required more and more capital, and I was funding it on my own. We got to hundreds of millions in sales, so it was becoming challenging. I had to buy businesses on an earnout, meaning a smaller amount of cash up front and a chance for the owners I was buying to earn more over time. That required a lot of faith on their part and my part. By the time I met Charlie, I had learned it is much better to pay a good price for a good business than a great price for a bad business. Charlie was all about that. They did not buy bad businesses. They did not look for bargains or a business they could buy at a discount. Their view is they wanted to pay a good price for a good business that was on its way up as opposed to one that was declining. Lesson: it's better to pay a good price for a good business than get a bargain on a bad business. It's hard to be simple. Touched on this before, but it's a very, very important point. Most of my conversation with Charlie were simple. He was obviously a super smart guy and understood investing in financials on a level I did not, but most of our conversations were about business and leadership and pretty simple concepts. He loved to break down things into simple ideas and concepts. He believed that people tended to overcomplicate things. Simple is hard. I learned this from him, and it stuck with me for many years. I used to go to meetings where people were explaining their business to me, or my team was telling me about some incredible idea, how we were going to go after this market segment and how we were going to do it. If the answer or explanation was highly complex, it tended to be not such a great idea. Charlie knew that simple is hard, and simple ideas are usually the best. It's the execution that is hard. There's an old saying in business when explaining things, the KISS concept: keep it simple, stupid. It's very much true. Lesson: simple is hard, but usually the best path forward. Money is not a Ferrari, although that's nice too. It's freedom. I have learned this lesson by the time I met Charlie. To a point, I was still worried about money. Not about how much I had, because at that point I had, well, more than I needed. But I was still caught up. How am I doing compared to that person? Do I have the best of this toy or that toy? It was impossible to meet Charlie and not realize how little money mattered to him in terms of what it could buy him, but how much it mattered to him as a tool. He lived in the same house in LA that he bought in the 1950s. He ate simple, he lived simple. The great wealth he had accumulated was simply freedom to him. The freedom to live the way he wanted, and the freedom to spend time with only the people he wanted to hang out with. In business, they call that FU money, F you money, meaning that you can say FU to anyone and do whatever you want. I remember when I was younger having these conversations with my friends and thinking about how much is FU money? We would all talk about buying a jet, a vacation house, and all these things. Was it 50 million? Was it 100 million? What I've realized is money is not about buying the things you desire or crave or you think you crave. Money is about the freedom it buys you. For some people, it's very simple. For others, it's really complex. I love toys and I love to play with things, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with a Ferrari or two. But if the pursuit of that interferes with my freedom, I am very clear that freedom is more important. People tend to get trapped into the pursuit of things and don't realize it's a trap of your time. A better home, a better car, a better vacation house, a better school, always in the pursuit of better, and more of it at the cost of your freedom.
I really hope that you younger guys understand what he is saying. I really hope you paid attention. If you didn't, rewind it back and listen. Okay? Money is not a Ferrari. If that's what you want, that's what you want. But don't be mad at people like me, other people out there in the world that have a little bit of money and don't want that shit. It's not for everybody. I don't want Lambos and Ferraris and all that nonsense. I'm not chasing private jets, and it's not what I want. but I do want my freedom. I don't want to be punching the clock for somebody else in and out, being told what to do at 40 years old. So that's what I want. I want to be free. And, and it's wild, man. It's wild that I'll finish this up.
Listen, money is more important for freedom than more Ferraris. Just because you can afford it doesn't mean you should buy it. When I met Charlie, I was very rich, but not very wealthy. And there's a difference. To me, I had enough money to do whatever I wanted, but I needed to work. My wealth was tied up in my business. My business failed, I failed. My wealth faltered. Nothing wrong with that, but I was the working rich. Again, nothing wrong with that. I could do and afford most things to a point, but I still had to be careful because my business needed my money and my time. A few years later, I sold my business to equity and things changed. My wealth was no longer solely tied to the business. I was no longer the working rich. I was just the rich. I could buy anything I wanted, literally anything, and I did. A bigger jet, a yacht, and so on. I have an insatiable appetite for life and for playing with things. I love toys, but I got to a point that I was living for the toys, and they were all a lot of time and work. A large yacht is super fun, but it's work. We had a crew of 18 at one point. It was like running a small business. Nothing wrong with that, but I didn't want to spend my time on that. One of the lessons I learned from Charlie, just because you can afford it does not mean you should buy it. Buying more stuff is work. Again, no judgment, and I have a ton of friends who have tons of stuff and are super happy with it all. As different as these people are, there's a couple of characteristics that they all do share. In fact, there are three. First, they're obsessed with their business. Not passionate or really love it, they are obsessed with it. Sit down with any of them and get into a conversation about their field, and it'll be hours. Passion fades, obsession is always. Two, they're curious. Many of these people ask me more questions than I ask them. They're curious about others. They're curious about the world. They just want to learn. It's hard to get ahead if you're not curious. And three, they make no excuses. This is probably the most common characteristics. They've been beaten up, they've been down, they've had nothing, but they never blame their circumstances. They never say, if this or that. They take responsibility for their lives. And they've all come back from incredible odds. Most of these people don't come from privilege. And yes, most will admit they have been incredibly lucky. But it is the lack of excuses that really hits you. It's the old red car theory. That's a whole nother story. As a guy I admire says in his great book, Endure, Cameron Hanes, no one cares, work harder. You had a bad upbringing, your parents weren't there, you had bad things happen to you, you came from a communist country and your dad was in jail all the time. No one cares, work harder. Well, that was my story of Charlie Munger and the 10 things I've learned to become a billionaire, and not just in Australia. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe and let me know what else you'd like to see.
Again, that's Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank. You guys can go follow his channel. Check him out. I just felt like somebody might like that. I hope you guys paid attention. Hope you got something out of it. Take care.